Welcome back to RT's election night coverage. As we wait for more results, let's take a look back at the 3 presidential debates that were covered incessantly by the mainstream media, which may have likely swayed the minds of the undecideds out there.
The first debate, Obama was, well, largely asleep. In fact, it looked like he was on Ambien. But there was some confrontation at times. Here are Obama and Romney arguing over the governor's so-called tax plan.
Governor Romney's proposal that he's been promoting for 18 months calls for a $5 trillion tax cut on top of $2 trillion of additional spending for our military.
Virtually everything he just said about my tax plan is inaccurate.
All right,
so if the tax plan he described were a tax plan I was asked to support, I'd say absolutely not. I'm not looking for a $5 trillion tax cut. What I've said is I won't put in place a tax cut that adds to the deficit. That's part one. So there's no economist can say Mitt Romney's tax plan adds $5 trillion if I say I will not add to the deficit with my tax plan.
The fact is that if you are lowering the rates the way you described, Governor, then it is not possible to come up with enough deductions and loopholes that only affect high-income individuals to avoid either raising the deficit or burdening the middle class. It's math. It's arithmetic.
Well, the confrontation between the candidates was elevated in the second debate, especially when talking about the Benghazi attack.
The day after the attack, Governor, I stood in the Rose Garden and I told the American people and the world that we were going to find out exactly what happened, that this was an act of terror, and I also said that we're going to hunt down those who committed this crime. And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether the Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive. That's not what we do. That's not what I do as president. That's not what I do as commander-in-chief.
Governor, if you want to reply just quickly to this, please.
I certainly do. I think it's interesting the president just said something which is that on the day after the attack, he went to the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror. That's what I said. You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
He did call it an act of terror. It did as well take 2 weeks or so for the whole idea of there being a riot out there about this tape to come out. You're correct about that.
And the third debate was, well, a huge foreign policy love fest. Mitt Romney desperately tried to create any sort of rhetorical differences between President Obama and himself on our nation's foreign wars, but ultimately we all learned that there are no real differences.
We have to do as the president's done. I congratulate him on taking out Osama bin Laden.
Governor Romney, I'm glad that you agree that we have been successful in going after al-Qaeda. To the governor's credit, you supported us going into Libya.
I believe, as the president indicated and said at the time, that I supported his action there. I felt the same as the president did. First of all, I want to underscore the same point the president made.
What you just heard Governor Romney said is he doesn't have different ideas.
We all learned that both men are pretty much on board with what's going on in Afghanistan and what's going on all around the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia with our drone wars. The agreements sparked outrage on both the far left and the far right, with those who see the wars as atrocities or even as war crimes, and who are fed up with both Democrats and Republicans when it comes to military misadventure. The entire debate in that context was a disgrace.
Now, we are going to talk more about the debates and how they may have affected the election with Democratic strategist Erica Canuti and Neil McCabe, editor of Guns and Patriots. I want to thank you guys for coming. Do we have, before we start, though, an update, or are we going to?
We have some updated numbers. Connecticut has gone for Obama, and in fact, actually, Chris Murphy won the Connecticut, and Arkansas for Romney, bringing their electoral numbers to 88 for the president and 78 for the governor.
All right.
And Chris Murphy has been called by the Associated Press as winning the Connecticut seat over Linda McMahon. So she, who was the Republican putting out the ad saying, vote for Obama and me, without identifying herself as a Republican. That was a very strange race.
Very interesting.
Absolutely, that is odd.
Well, it reminds me, Dick D'Amato also had the same sort of thing where you could vote for Clinton and D'Amato, and
Yeah,
he lost.
well, his whole issue was potholes.
But I don't know that you could confuse Linda McMahon's policies for anything at all resembling a Democratic policy or Barack Obama's
Yeah,
policy.
her husband gave $150,000 to the Romney campaign. Somehow that got ignored in her embrace of Obama.
Well, she moved very far. She is a great example, kind of very similar to Mitt Romney. At the campaign she ran, because again, she ran for Senate 2 years ago. The campaign she ran there was a much more extreme campaign. You started seeing her kind of moderate some of her views later on, the closer it got, as it looked like maybe some of the extreme positions weren't going to be as fruitful as they had been in the past. So you saw kind of, I think, the same thing there.
I think it may have even been sort of a Hurricane Sandy sort of tightening, because there was tightening for the president across the country, and so whatever momentum Republicans would have had, I think that sort of bump that the president was getting was reflected across the ticket.
So you're agreeing with what Bill O'Reilly just said a few minutes ago on another network.
I'm taking your word for it. I never watch Fox.
That
Lucky,
hurricanes,
unlike you.
Well, it's
Haley
being
Barbour
reported in the
also
media.
said that slowed down Governor Romney. Because
absolutely. I think that, I mean, Chris Christie was basically setting himself up. One, he's got re-election in 2013, and he's basically put all the Democrats in his state on notice that he was the one standing with Obama when the chips were down, and he's also setting himself up in 2016.
He's also chief executive of a state that has more damage, like the cost of the estimates of the damage is greater than their budget. So he's a guy who has to take care of his state and is working with, the president, who does oversee FEMA and a lot of the emergency disaster relief, and feels that they're working well together and that it's been good for his state. He should absolutely talk about that.
So Hurricane Sandy, certainly one of the major factors that a lot of people tomorrow, when the Monday morning quarterbacking is happening, no matter what, will probably point to as having played some sort of role, no matter who wins tonight's election. But
knocked Romney off TV.
Right. Well, let's also talk about the debates, which we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Sure.
And certainly we did see after that first debate, the poll numbers shift pretty dramatically. A lot of historians, though, look at debates, and they have a handful of examples when the debates were very significant in terms of changing the course of the race. But for the most part, they say it doesn't. What do you guys think? Erica, I'll start with you. These three debates and the role they played in this election.
I think debates, I agree, don't really matter as much. I mean, particularly now that campaigns start so early, people aren't waiting till October in general to make up their minds. I think one of the hallmarks of this race has been the lack of kind of real undecided voters. Not very many people had to wait until, October 31st to sit down and say, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do here. But I think if, kind of on the converse side, if Obama does lose, I think people will look back to that first debate as kind of that real turning point. And it may be the first debate that actually does change the election. Although we usually say that we get the kind of convention bumps, Romney and the Republicans never got the convention bump. So maybe that first debate was kind of the modern convention bump that they just didn't see.
I think Romney preloaded his convention bump because he announced Ryan at the USS Wisconsin before the convention. And so I think he got whatever bump that was going to happen. But that first debate,
didn't get much bump up.
He didn't.
No, but when I was watching that first, I was 20 minutes into that debate, and everybody at Human Events was just we were all sort of watching it together. And I turned to the guy next to me and I said, is Romney really doing this well? Because it seems like he's doing well, but I wasn't sure, because you have a tendency to sort of root for your side. And it seemed like for the first time, Romney had a chance without the filter of sort of the Obama campaign and his friends in the media. It's like for the first time, the American people got to see Romney without sort of that attack that's constantly been on him.
Well, let's not forget, too, though, Romney, in that first debate, seemed very at ease because he was sort of the moderate Romney that everyone said was hiding under that skin, came out for the first time, really, in this campaign, I feel like. And so that Romney probably performed well because perhaps he was being a little more true to himself.
He was also in his element.
So, it was not the Romney that Obama was expecting.
Oh, certainly.
No, it certainly
and it was
wasn't.
not the Romney that we had seen the majority of the campaign that was really playing to the right.
Obama had prepped to go against
standing at the
Romney.
podium as if he was addressing a shareholders meeting or something like that. In the other two debates, you know, it wasn't the same format. And I think in that format and in that way, Romney had an advantage.
I think some people were, at that point, Romney had a number of kind of, for lack of a better phrase, foot and mouth moments where he kind of just really stepped in it. And so I think a lot of people, and maybe perhaps even the president, were kind of expecting Romney to be a foot and mouth kind of guy, similar to how the kind of hype with Sarah Palin and Joe Biden's debate. But the reality is that Mitt Romney isn't a foot and mouth guy. He's a very smooth, very charismatic person. I always say that if we all got hit with amnesia and woke up and said, who's the president, we would all point and be like, well, that guy looks like a president. I mean, he's got the hair, the height. Yeah, he must be the president, right? But I think that there was kind of a fundamental misunderstanding that he's not a foot and mouth guy. He's out of touch. He's awkward, yes, and doesn't necessarily know how to relate to the everyday American, and that's what was coming through.
Well, the other thing, I guess, with Obama is that for the first time, it would have been the first time in 4 years, really since Hillary took it to him in the primaries, it was the first time that anybody ever really challenged Obama, because he, you know, when he first became president, remember how he said he wasn't going to be in the bubble? Well, that guy is in the bubble. And like nobody ever challenges him. Nobody ever tells him he's wrong. The way Romney was going after him, I don't think Obama was prepared. This is a pattern
that we've seen over the last 30 years or so, where every time an incumbent is running for re-election, they tend to lose that first debate or do poorly in that first debate. And I think it's a consequence of living in the White House for 4 years and basically being treated like king.
Sure.
If you walk out and you give your address and you say 4 questions and you point to people and you get 4 questions and then you walk off, you know, the stage.
And
so
nobody
it gets,
challenges you.
It might be minutia,
Right.
but I think that Reagan was even more disastrous in that second debate. But everyone remembered he told a joke.
Right.
And he said a lot of crazy things in that second debate about Nicaragua and about shooting things from space.
I think his early Alzheimer's was showing.
I mean, in a very serious way.
Yeah.
I think there was something going on there.
Well,
but I
one
think
thing I would say about Obama, going back to kind of not really kind of expecting this, Jim Lair was, I think, by far the most disappointing moderator. And Mitt Romney was successful in that first debate because he was essentially doing the same tactical or kind of strategic model that he ran the campaign. He, you know, kind of shifted the rules, pushed back, walked outside of the lines, didn't feel particularly beholden to the truth, and there wasn't a moderator kind of guiding that in that debate. And so
it's like replacement rep football. It was like it was better football.
We can Monday and to extend that metaphor, we can Monday morning quarterback that forever, but we have to wrap up this segment. So, Erica, Neil, thank you both.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Well, as we approach 9 p.m. on the East Coast, the electoral numbers remain the same, 88 for Romney and 78 for President Obama. But many states, of course, just about to close their polls. RT's coverage of the 2012 presidential election will continue after this.